Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy, human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here on Depictions Media Radio. Of course, I'm your host, Michael Clogs. We're going to hear from Marc Cortez. He is an author. He wrote the book called Climate Maturity. And in his book, he is offering ideas and solutions to climate change that are very different from what we're hearing from our politicians, our elected officials, and from some of the large climate science agencies. What we're hearing from him is that maybe we need to take a more moderate approach, a more minimalist approach to figuring out how to lower our CO2 levels, how we can figure out ways of maybe cutting back on some of our consumerism so that we start to ease off of the CO2 levels that we're seeing. And these aren't exactly popular ideas. These are ideas that don't make big splashes or drive people down the streets with picket signs saying we need to take action, but it is action. The thing of it is action that is maybe achievable. It is something that we can do ourselves as the individuals, ease back a little bit on some of our consumerism, buy into things a little bit less. Allowing for more minimalist ideas to occur could be a way of actually curbing or ensuring that we do not go past 2 degrees Celsius in climate change. But again, it's not a popular idea with the politicians. Is not a popular idea with those who are trying to sell us a big, bold package that is saying that maybe our human race is not going to last past 2050 if we don't take extreme action now. Maybe the extreme action is the minimalist action that we actually need, and we can actually achieve some of our climate change goals. So let's listen to the author of Climate Maturity, Marc Cortez, as we have a conversation around what may actually really be needed to curb climate change and keep us within the ranges that the United Nations and other global agencies are talking about. Anyway, welcome to the show, Marc. You wrote the book Climate Maturity, right?
Yes.
Or something close to. I probably mispronounced it by now, didn't I?
No, that's the word. I mashed up a word, climate and maturity, and I put them together because that seems to be sorely needed these days in the climate discussion. Just a mature discussion about it. So.
No, the one thing that really struck me, especially out of your thoughts on it, was we got the extremes to either side, where one saying we're not doing anything wrong, that there is no such thing as climate change, and then you got the other side saying how dirty everything is and we need to kill the oil and gas and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Well, um, because parts of your book actually discuss that we can't just choke off the oil and gas, and nor can we, because you spent a career in solar energy, right?
Right. Yeah. 20, I think I got into it. I sold my first solar module in 1999. So have been in it for quite a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off there.
So there's like choking one off to affect the other is definitely not going to be the right move, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the entire, energy is front and center these days. It often is. But when the lights start going out, when you start having blackouts, when there's 40-year inflation, energy prices, double-digit inflation, it becomes a big deal. And this so-called energy transition that we're sort of undertaking, where everything's turning to electric vehicles, everyone wants renewable energy and all that kind of stuff. So this is now part of everyday discussion. What are we going to do about energy here in California? I live about 10 miles away from a big nuclear power plant, and finally, we're actually going to keep this thing open. And so I'm not an advocate for any particular one, even though I worked in solar for a long time. I also have an intimate understanding of all the limitations of what solar modules can and can't do. So I love it as a way to reduce energy and price, cost for your home and for businesses. I don't love it as a way to think that we're going to actually save the planet by solarizing the entire world. It's actually that's a bit of a just a downright silly idea, to be honest with you. So I'm in favor of, let's just be open and transparent and attack this from a portfolio approach. What makes sense and where, and we need all of these oars in the water, so to speak. So it's just going to make, we just have to weigh the options and I think above all have a bipartisan approach to solving this, because we're not there yet by any means.
Yeah, well, U.S. and Canada, we have like the why you have the Republicans and the Democrats saying we're going to take the lead on this and we're going to make it happen, and we're just going to cut those Republicans out, or we're just going to cut those Democrats out. Here in Canada, we have, well, we're going to, the liberals saying that we're going to fix this by doing what we're doing, and we're just going to leave the conservatives behind. And then you have we have a third party in there with the NDP, and the fourth party that no one actually ever listens to is the party that says, hold on, guys, why don't we all sit down at a table and figure out what are the best ideas, and then put those best ideas to work towards a common goal. And nobody wants to hear that sort of thing.
Yeah,
especially the politicians, right?
Yeah, and look, I think that's just part of politics 101 is scare the hell out of people so you can be the guy who solves it. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But with energy policy and we're now. It's just such a huge pendulum. Climate change is on everyone's lips these days. Climate truth is largely non-existent. What's the real truth? What's not? What's fabricated? What's not? What's really going on? And that's what really led me down this journey. I started to hear, well, on the back end, as a professor, I teach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I started to see the results of all this miscommunication and this climate apocalyptic messaging, where you've got 21-year-old young adults heading into the world thinking that they're not going to be able to have kids because the world's going to die, and literally thinking that. And I thought to myself, man, how did we fail them so badly? I take personal responsibility for that, because I spent so much time in my career crafting these messages, but it was never that. It was never that sort of thing. It morphed, and I don't know when it did, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. it morphed into the, oh my God, we're all going to die by Wednesday if we don't do something dramatic. And now it's just absolute, bluster about everything. So what's the truth? And that's what led me down this path. And in searching for climate truth, I guess is the way to put it.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a hard truth right now. 2050 comes rolling along, and does the human race survive?
Of course. Of course.
I mean, it sounds like a silly question, but
look, here's some basics. All right, we in the 20th century, the 1900s, global temperatures rose by 1 degree. Right, so we're hearing out there that if it goes to 1.5 or 2 degrees, we're going to spontaneously combust. I'm exaggerating, of course, but these are the stories that are out there. This number, this 2 degree number out there is climate death. Well, we just spent 100 years increasing our temperatures across the globe by 1 degree, and all kinds of good stuff happened as opposed to all kinds of bad stuff, right? We cured hundreds of diseases. The global population doubled in that amount of time. Global GDP rose. Average lifespans rose. We can now feed the world 7 times over in terms of growth. Distribution is another problem. So, where's the apocalypse? Where's the apocalypse coming from? And so 2050, yes, we will still be here, guaranteed.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know it sounds like a crazy question, but hey, this is some of the things that some of the climate politicians want us to think that if we don't follow a plan, then we're toast, and doesn't seem to be true. Like you said, for a lot of the reasons that you just discussed. Do we need to come up with a coordinated plan so that if the carbon that we're mining out of the ground does actually happen to run out, do we need to have a coordinated plan so we can keep the grid going?
You mean in terms of oil and gas? Well, I think, yes, we need to continually develop. The idea about generally phasing in cleaner energy sources, of course, that makes sense. That's just common sense. The question becomes, do you do it all today and spend every dollar that you have and borrow money that you don't have in order to do it? Well, no, that's the discussion. So we're continually evolving our energy sources. We're continually evolving the grid. That needs to continue to happen. Oil and gas is not going anywhere. And I challenge, I don't know one person who's given up oil and gas. Even the hardcore environmentalists are driving their cars or taking some form of transportation to whatever protest they're going to hang themselves from. You're right, this week. So it's just an exercise in complete futility. Oil and gas is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It takes a lot of oil and gas to produce products that use less oil and gas. So if you shut off the spigot today, all the renewable energy industries go away. Everything goes away. We go back to living in caves, and that's not even an exaggeration. So it is. So I'm not an oil and gas guy, but let's just be honest about it. It's probably one of the greatest inventions of in human history. It's lifted entire civilizations out of poverty and given us the standard of living that we have.
Yeah.
So how can you hate it for so much? How can you hate it? So we now understand there are some downsides to it. Of course, we need to use energy more responsibly. But one of my bugaboos is, our climate problem, at least the man-made part of it, is essentially an overconsumption problem. We're just using too much stuff. And some of the policies here, like in the U.S., we just are approving hundreds of billions of dollars to consume more stuff. So we've got an overconsumption problem. And now our prescription to solve that is we're going to spend a lot more money consuming more stuff. We're going to build factories to build more stuff for us to consume. It doesn't even make logical sense. And that's part of why I started down this path again, was just to sort of, point out this stuff. Like, who isn't anyone looking at this? Doesn't anyone can anyone stand up and just say, guys, what is it that we're doing?
Yeah. Um, education actually seems to be key here. And one of the in our pre-interview, we brought up something about population control and versus education, because like we have countries like Afghanistan that don't believe in educating women, but if we were to educate women, and I'm getting towards population control is what I'm getting to. That if we were to educate everybody on an equal basis about what is going on, and we were able to control our population from doubling over one or two more times, that actually go a long way to helping um, our current resource situation. I'm not talking about climate change. I'm talking about just how we use our resources, that
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I quoted some statistics about the 20th century. The population across the globe doubled, right? We're up to 7.5, 8 billion people. So that's a lot. And so that's just twice as many people using twice as much stuff. So that's a big deal. And certainly the more people we have, the better stewards of the environment we need to be. That we now know that. Interestingly enough, Project Drawdown is a nonprofit group that they've done a great job of going through a bunch of different options for mitigating climate change, and they've just come up with a list, and they've ranked. Here's 75, 80 different options. Here's how much we think that they might cost. Here's the guessing, the estimates of potential CO2 benefits. And then if you go through that list, it's a great list. It lists a bunch of these different energy and just societal options. The number one option is women's education in developing countries, and which no one ever talks about, right? The biggest impact that this group has identified as the way to mitigate climate change is to educate women in developing nations to not have as many kids, and to understand the impact of that. So population control, certainly not a word that any politician is going to use, and it's not popular. And how do you say that? But having an understanding of what additional people onto the earth and the footprint that we each have certainly can only help us understand how to use less resources. So that's one of the great things about this organization. That what they did was they went through and they ranked all these things, and of the top 30 ideas that they have to help save the planet, most of them are natural solutions. They're education, they are agri-farming, they are reforestation, ways to preserve nature, and just use our existing resources better.
Yeah. With that being said, of reforestation, do our vegan friends have a point?
You mean about not eating meat and
yeah, and of course, like burning the Amazon in order to grow more cows.
Yeah, well, sure. Look, again, it all comes down to balance. I don't think there's any one right answer. I think the idea about cutting down trees so you can build factories to build solar modules or windmills is a bit ludicrous, even though that's what we do. Or cutting down forests so you can put wind farms or solar farms. Pretty silly, right?
Yeah.
So would society do better off eating less meat? I guess, probably. I like a hamburger now and then. I'm not hardcore on it either way. I think if the world went vegan, I don't think that solves all the problems. So is it an option? Sure. But you certainly can't mandate that. And, I think, but better stewardship of the environment absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting here is all of the really hardcore smoking guns that you see people putting the picket sign up saying, "Listen to me, listen to me." You're saying it's like, well, Yeah, if we culminate that into a plan where we do a little bit of that and a little bit of this, that um, it sounds like your plan for climate action is more of a melting pot sort of thing, where let's all work together to bring our consumption down. Period.
Well, I think consumption reduction, no one ever talks about that, right? Just using less stuff. Actually, the company that I've started right now is a water conservation company. It's called Liquidate, and I'm actually developing a company where we actually pay people to save water. So there's ways to do it. When we wanted people to adopt solar, we paid them. If you want people to change their behavior, you pay them. Here in California, with demand side management programs, when the grid gets too busy and they start having warnings, internal alerts that it may go down, they issue alerts and they'll pay people to turn their lights off during certain hours. Right. So it can work. It can totally work. And I don't understand why it doesn't even get talked about. Right. No one wants to stand up and say, hey, folks, maybe we just turn your lights off. Maybe we use less stuff. Maybe we don't spend trillions of dollars building new factories so we can all we continue to just use energy unabated and cross our fingers and hope that that's going to save the planet. So melting pot, I think what I'm a biggest advocate for is doing things that actually make a real impact. And so not just, unfortunately, what has happened is climate panic is the norm. And what good happens from panic? Not just climate, anywhere, right? If you're panicking,
exactly.
You're looking for anything, and that's what's happened. So climate panic is a strategy, no doubt about it, and that's part of what I show in my book. But also a lot of my research is just like this is absolutely intentional. People are out there trying to make sure that we're completely scared about the climate, even if it's untethered in science. Because what happens? It leads to spending. It leads to policies like we have right now, which is just governments and politicians specifically looking to cater to their constituents, the people that brought them into office, and spend a lot of money. And so, what I'm an advocate for is transparency. First of all, what's really going on? Let's get the scientists out there, and if they think that the world's going to die in 10 years, man, prove it. Stand up in front of Congress and have this discussion. Here in the U.S., when we wanted to impeach our last president over a phone call with Ukraine, we spent weeks in public forums poring over every single detail of that. Why haven't we done the same with climate change? Why haven't climate scientists been in front of panels for 6 months on C-SPAN where we can all see both sides of the political aisles asking them questions and having them talk about climate science? What do we know? What do we not know? What do the models limitations have? All that kind of stuff. So all that stuff. So transparency, but I also want bipartisanship. I think as we're finding, November is coming, and chances are very high that another political party will be elected to Congress, which means that they control the purse strings, which means that everything that everyone is doing a victory lap for now, spending all this public money, will come to a screeching halt. And guess what? We're back to where we were. The pendulum will swing to the other side. So what's the point of this? We're not solving anything. It certainly doesn't span administrations. It's just one political party gets in office, they do one thing. The other one gets in office, they do the opposite thing. No progress. The problem is just getting worse.
We're still batting the same ball around.
Yeah. I understand why people hate oil companies. I actually worked for 2 oil companies, Shell and BP, in their solar divisions. So as much as people want to hate them, they actually were pursuing renewable. They actually were pioneers in the renewable energy field. So they actually did some good. They were looking, a profit motive can actually be used towards good. They were looking to see if there's a way that they can make money at it. More power to them. I think that's part of the solution. And I understand why people hate the oil companies, because they funded, supposedly scientific studies that helped confuse and cloud the issue about how bad, gas emissions were and the damage that it caused. And All of that stuff is now a matter of public record. We know it, and a big part of the environmental movement is well, let's go stick it to them, right? We have to go get them. My feeling is like, man, that's just wasted energy. We actually have to solve problems, and spending your life looking in the rearview mirror is a bit pointless. If they committed crimes, fine, let's prosecute them and put them in jail. But that's never going to happen. And spending our energy trying to make them, fess up and pay for stuff that they did bad in the past doesn't help us solve our problems going into the future. So I personally, and part of what I advocate for is, man, let's just get past this whole idea that we're going to spend most of our energy to go chase oil companies, and maybe let's figure out a way to help companies make money saving the planet. Once we figure that out, then this whole thing becomes a moot point.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think that we will have it's going to sound ridiculous. We're going to have a savior technology appear that's going to clean up the greenhouse gases, or it's just going to be, let's change what we're doing over time?
Oh, I think it's going to be an evolution. I mean, the one thing about the world's grand plan to decarbonize, that's the buzzword. Let's have the world get to net zero. The problem with that is that whole exercise is not removing CO2. It's making the future potentially less worse. So every solar panel you put on your house or business adds CO2. It never makes it lower. Same with wind. Every energy source you add to the grid, even if it's comparatively cleaner, if you're adding energy, you're adding CO2. It's just physics. You can't politicize your way out of that. Yeah. So
I was going to say, with the electric cars, the lithium ion batteries that they're talking about putting in those, it's like you still got to mine the lithium out of the ground, and that produces how much CO2, right?
Yeah, well, everything that's made adds CO2. It never makes it less, and with one exception, I'll get to that. So, but if you're buying an electric car, you're adding CO2. You're making the problem worse. Just because it's a cleaner source of transportation doesn't mean that you've made it better. You just made the future potentially less worse, and that's a very different thing. That's like saying, well, I eat 20 donuts a day, and now I'm going to switch to low-cal donuts a day. Okay, you're still eating 20 donuts a day. You're still making it worse. You're just making it less worse than eating the double cream filled donuts, right? That's all we're doing. So, so carbon capture, carbon removal technologies, and so these aren't magic bullets, and they're politically out of favor because, again, the oil company argument. People say, well, we can't. Carbon capture is just literally sucking carbon out of the air and removing it. And so, people say, well, that's just a way for oil companies, to get a free pass for what they've done. And I think to myself, well, isn't the goal to get to net zero? Isn't that the whole point? Is to lower CO2 levels. So I don't even understand the logic behind that. It's sort of this blind hatred of oil companies. So is that a magic bullet technology? I don't know. I think it's still early in their development. Of course, it's super expensive. Carbon removal, direct air capture, but carbon removal, trees, nature, reforestation, all of these natural solutions that we could deploy. I keep thinking here in the U.S., why don't we turn every single national park into a protected carbon sink? Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we?
Okay, because this is what was rolling in the back of my mind. It's like technology that sucks carbon out of the air. Wait, didn't nature already give us that? It's called the tree.
Yeah.
If we protect the national forests and the national parks and plant more trees in there, wouldn't that eventually start to suck carbon down?
Yes. Absolutely. And again, it's now, is there enough? People will say, well, that's not the long-term solution. There's not enough landmass in the world, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it actually is built, carbon removal technology and natural solutions, they actually are built to remove carbon, whereas all this other stuff aren't, right? Energy generation systems are not built to remove carbon. They're made to actually add carbon. That's exactly what they do. They convert one energy source into another. That's the whole thing. So I don't think there's a magic bullet, but I think again, a portfolio. But part of what needs to happen is the overall dialogue and the narrative needs to change towards solutions that make an actual difference. Okay, if we're spending all this money, we damn sure better make sure that it's actually having an effect. I think I read an economic report the other day that showed that with all of the 350 billion plus spent on the now famous Inflation Reduction Act here in the U.S., this big, huge landmark climate bill supposedly that is now just been enacted. People are celebrating and things like that. I think that when they plug that into the climate models, all that spend and all the deployment of products, I think the number was something like 0.001 degree of global effect for all that spend. Think about that. All that money for almost no impact. Okay, so who's that benefiting? That's benefiting politicians. It's benefiting people who want that government money. It's not benefiting the environment. It's not helping the climate. It's just making people look better. It's it's virtue signaling. It's spending our public money. Same up in Canada. It's spending our public money towards things that make them look better and make them feel better about themselves. But it's not exactly helping the climate or helping the planet. So,
well, we talk about the controversial carbon pricing that the Canadian government put in place, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I gotta pay, and this is dollars per liter. Was it $2.36 per liter of fuel to put into my 90-liter tank? Add that up.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, oh, this is the best way to do it. It's like, yeah, it's the best way to do it if I own the oil company and I get to collect all the money. But if the guy is spending the money or the small business needs to spend the money for things, it doesn't look so good.
Yeah. Well, I think the financial mechanisms like that can work. So, carbon credits, carbon offsets, things like that, they can work if they are done with the end goal in mind and with the effect on the environment in mind. So I'm actually a fan of that. And my company that I have, that I'm starting is doing exactly that. Let's give people financial incentives for what they want to do. I just think there's ways to do it. So, like if you give people subsidies, if you give you're writing checks to people, what's going to happen, right? So there's a reason that EVs are flooding the market. Is because the government is spending hundreds of millions of dollars, now billions of dollars, to Ford, to General Motors, and here, go produce. There's a reason that Elon Musk is a billionaire.
Yeah,
you're welcome, Elon.
It is a SpaceX, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, not to discredit what they've done. I'm just saying, he followed the money, right? The government is paying him all kinds of billions of dollars to go do this. Why wouldn't you do it? So why wouldn't you build factories all over the world to increase production and put out these products? Why wouldn't you do it if the government is telling you to go do it? So
if we were to incentivize things that actually stop making things a little bit worse, but actually make things a little bit better, then we might actually be onto something.
Yes, I think so too, and I'm hoping, and you're starting to see pockets of that. But I think it starts with dialogue, and for people, part of what's happened in the climate game is, people like myself, you just can't say what I'm saying. That's just the truth. And 23 years in in the renewable energy field, all the things I'm saying are not allowed. You're not allowed to say this kind of stuff because you can't expose the truth, which is a really funny way to look at this. So it starts by, if we want real change, if we really want to tackle this problem, we have to be having this discussion. We have to be calling BS on all the stuff that's BS out there, because there's just so much of it. It's no magical secret that solar only works when the sun is shining, right? Why can't you say that out loud? Why is that such a crime to be able to say that? Yeah. Same with the wind. Nuclear has its own problem. No one's defending coal. I mean, we know coal is bad, but it's also reliable. It also has some good things about it. Same with oil and gas. So you got to be able to talk about both the pluses and minuses in order to come up with some long-term real solutions. Again, I don't see any solution, any future at all with no oil and gas. It's just a silly thing to talk about. It really is. I just can't, everyone who says that to me and who's, foaming at their mouth, we got to get rid of oil and gas. I always say, you know what? You first. Go for it.
I say we got to get them to tell the truth about what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stop them from doing what they're doing. Just be upfront.
Yeah. Look, yeah.
I know oil and gas in the past 150 some years, it's really embedded itself into our society, into everything that we've done, right? And not a lot we're going to do to change that right now. But how do we get because I've heard stories about like climate scientists who want to go out there and tell the truth, that they that they're hamstringed together and they're not allowed to talk. They have gag orders against them.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, there probably are some formal gag orders like that in place, but I think it's more of a culture. Okay, I think, and it goes to what I was just saying. I come from the solar industry. I can never, you can't say what I'm saying. You just can't do it. There's not rules in place, but I've had plenty of people actually say this to me. You can't be out there talking about it. You can't be out there saying this kind of stuff. You just can't, right? Because it'll hurt business. And so there's this sort of informal pressure. And so that's the way it is with scientists. Look, if you are a scientist, if you're a climate scientist, you are subject to the political winds. And people will say, well, no, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. And I say, really? You don't think that's true? How much climate science do you think got done when Donald Trump was president? Of course it's true. So scientists, they get grants. Their careers get enhanced and heightened because of things that they publish. Most of the climate science is stuff you never see. 90% of it is stuff that they're out there doing their experiment and there's no conclusion, right? Because they're not seeing cause and effect, so they can't publish, and it never sees the light of day. So scientists are encouraged to be more apocalyptic. They're encouraged to be more visible. In the latest IPCC report, this big 8,600-page document that is now considered the climate Bible, there's a whole section on what's happened with climate science and how they have to be media savvy and social media savvy, and advocacy is now part of their job. So yeah, there's a whole there's all this pressure to think and act certain ways, but you're starting to see people branch out of this. So one of the big ones is Stephen Koonin, who was Obama's Undersecretary of Energy, and he was a climate scientist and participated in that process for decades. And he's written a book called Unsettled. If there's one book I could point to on the science, I would tell people to go buy that book, because he goes into, his basic conclusion is climate science is a bunch of models that have very limited utility and truth, in what's actually really going on. Extremely difficult to model what we're trying to model. They're completely inefficient to dictate policy. And he lays it out in excruciating scientific detail why it is all fall apart. And he's actually a self-proclaimed Democrat, but he's going right down the middle, kind of where I am. He's the science guy, basically saying a lot of what I'm saying, which is the models and the climate science, the state of climate science these days do not lead us to the apocalyptic outcomes that we're hearing in the media. And so I think it's going to take people that are out there just calling it out and saying BS and allowing scientific community and also the commercial community like myself, allowing us to be able to actually question stuff and openly having discussions about this. And I think you're starting to see the tide turn on that, where so it's going to take a long time because like you said, scientists are they're pressured to say the party line, and they're pressured to generate reports that support that, and that's been a big part of what's happened with climate science. So
yeah, so anyway, since we're getting ready to run out of time soon,
sure.
Where's the best place to find your book?
Well, Amazon is always the best place to find things. Amazon Climaturity, just it's spelled like it sounds. You can go in there and Climaturity, and there's 3 different versions: Kindle, paperback, and now an audio version of it, which just came out, which is not read by me, but the narrator, Andy Pearson, did a fantastic job with it. He did a great job of turning some techno speak into something that you actually would want to listen to during a multiple hour drive. Or you can go to my website, climaturity.com, and it's available there. I encourage people, if they're just, it's not, I'm not a scientist, even though I'm an engineer and speak climate scientist. I'm a consumer of it. I have been for 23 years. So it's written from a point of view of someone who is trying to consume all of this information that we are being fed. So, which is all of us. We are all trying to understand what's going on with the climate. So, and that's the approach I took, because there's plenty of stuff that has me scratching my head. And what's interesting to me as this book has gotten out there is it's actually had the opposite effect that I thought it was going to have. I had a lot of people who are saying, I've thought about all that stuff, and no one has ever said it. And no one has ever, I'm not allowed to say it, because if I have this conversation with my buddy, he's going to scream at me because he's such a believer. And so my hope with all of this discussion, what you and I are doing right now, is to just be able to have a dialogue. If we're wrong, let's be wrong. Let's be wrong quicker so we can be right quicker about things. If the problem is 10 times worse than we're hearing, I don't think it is, but if it is, then let's find that out sooner, right? Let's actually solve this problem. I'm not a denier. I am not saying that it's not a factor. I think that humans are having some influence on the climate. Certainly 8 billion people on a planet with limited resources are going to have an effect on it. So I would encourage us all to try to somehow get our way towards the middle, so we can actually start solving these things over a long period of time.
Yeah. You know what? You make a lot more sense than some of the other things I hear in all these other big COP discussions and all that kind of stuff. You're making more sense than some of them are, and it's like it's all crazy, like a forest. Maybe we should just grow the forest instead, right?
Well, the COP discussions to me are just, come on, guys, this is political theater. This is politicians standing up there. If you're a developing country, why are you there? You're there because you want to say that there's a global problem so you can get money for your own country. It's all about money. It's all about political theater. It's all about getting votes and making yourself look good in front of a world stage. That's what these things are. All of these big international agreements have done nothing. Honest. Yeah. I mean, let's just call them out, right? So everyone made a big fit here for Trump backing out of the Paris Accord. But if you actually look at what the Paris Accord is, oh my gosh, it's not even worth the paper it's printed on. So I'm with you on this, right? It's like we don't need more international conferences.
Well, let's look at it this way. Sitting from the country north of you, it's like we stayed in the Paris agreements. Did we meet any at least just one of those targets?
No.
According to that Paris, no, not one target was actually met. It's like, so what good is it? What is good? What good is a piece of paper that we can't even actually achieve? At least we need to find something that we can achieve, right?
Yeah, and look at the, yeah, well, yes, of course, and what good are big international agreements when the two biggest emitters, the U.S. and China, when China goes, as soon as they sign the paper, they go back to China and they sign all the paperwork to build a bunch of new coal plants. What's wrong with this picture? I mean, who's the fool here? Are we the fool for believing them, or I mean, who's the bigger fool here? No, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They look at you and tell you that they're going to do good. Are we how dumb are we for believing them when they turn their back and go build a bunch of new coal plants? So
yeah.
Anyway, that's my soapbox.
Okay, we're about out of time. It's been wonderful talking to you. Everybody, go get the book Climate Maturity and read about what Mark is actually saying. It makes more sense to work out a plan where we do things in moderation and lower our consumptions than it does to actually just keep saying, oh, we need to find net zero, we need to find net zero, and we never even come close to it the way we're doing it. So, all right, thanks again, Mark.
Michael, thank you so much. A very enlightening and lively discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.